movement of 250 people in Rajangane restricted due to the spread of the coronavirus. What happened to the technical committee to take prompt decision to curb the spread of COVID-19?
නමුත් අපිට මේ සම්බන්ධයෙන් කතා බහ කරන්න මේ තාක්ෂණික තීරණ ගන්න තිබිය යුතු තාක්ෂණික කමිටුව සෞඛ්‍ය අමාත්‍යාංශය තුල තිබිය යුතු තාක්ෂණික කමිටුව මාස එකහමාරක් කාලයක් යනකම් රැස්ුන්නේ නැහැ.
We need a clear mandate to solve problems, a statement from Professor G.L. Piris. There is no need to postpone the election. Polling stations are the most secure locations, says Chairman of the National Election Commission.
නිරෝධායන කඳුරු වලට ගිහිල්ලා ඡන්ද තියෙනවා. ඡන්ද විමසීම ලැබීම ප්‍රමාද කරනවා කියන්නේ ප්‍රජාතන්ත්‍රවාදයේ ප්‍රමාද කරනවා කියන එක.
Police inspector arrested for allegedly concealing evidence in Saindamarudu explosion.
Good evening and welcome to Primetime News on TV1. On to those stories in detail. President Gotabaya Rajapaksa visited the Temple of the Sacred Truth today to obtain blessings. He also called on the Mahanayakas of the Malvathu and Askari chapters.
The President this morning paid homage to the Temple of the Sacred Tooth relic. Afterwards, the President called on the Mahanayaka of the Malvathu chapter of the Siam sect, Most Venerable Tibbatuave Sri Sumangala Thero, at the Malvathu Mahaviharaya. The President also met the Anunayaka of the Malvathu chapter, Most Venerable Niyangoda Vijitasiri Thero and Most Venerable Dimbul Kumure Vimala Dharma Thero, and obtained their blessings.
සියලු දෙවි දේවතාවන්ගේ ආරක්ෂාවෙන් රැකවරණයේ ඔබතුමන්ගේ මේ ඉදිරි කටයුතු සියල්ල සඵල කර ගැනීම සඳහා ඉතාම සතුටින් ඉදිරි කාලයේ ගෙවන්නට ඔබතුමාට ශක්තිය, ධෛර්යය, බලය, වාසනාව, නිරෝගී සුව අත්වේවා.
The President also met with the Mahanayaka of the Askiri chapter, Most Venerable Varakagoda Sri Jnana Ratana Thero, at the Askiri Mahaviharaya. The Anunayakas of the Askiri chapter and the Lekadikari Theros were also present.
The number of total COVID-19 patients in the island increased to 2,644 today. 112 people who are suspected to have contracted COVID-19 were hospitalized this morning. 106 COVID-19 patients were identified yesterday. According to the Department of Government Information, 76 inmates who were transferred from the Kandakadu Treatment and Rehabilitation Centre to the Senapura Rehabilitation Centre have tested positive for COVID-19. A person who was undergoing quarantine upon arrival from the UAE, a person who arrived from Bangladesh, 14 people in quarantine centres, 5 people who arrived from Belarus and 2 seafarers from Iran are among the infected people reported yesterday. As of now, 625 people are receiving treatment in hospitals under medical supervision, while 1,981 people have recovered from the virus. According to our correspondent, security has been beefed up in Rajangane, where a large number of patients were discovered and operations at state sector offices have been limited. We will have no access to food in another 2 days. The spread started from a funeral. This would not be our plight if proper steps were taken.
We have rice and coconuts, but that is only for another day or two. We make ends meet from the small hotel we operate in. No one informed us of this. When we got to know this, only this morning, we had already stored 10 kilos of dal and chicken at the hotel. We had to close the shop afterwards.
33 people who associated several staffers at the Kandakadu Quarantine Centre have been subject to 14 days self-quarantine. These people are reported to be residents of Swagama and Sangabodhigama in the Tamankadua Medical Health Officers Division. According to our correspondent, these people are from 9 families and a private business establishment. A correspondent said that the Unagala Vihara Rajamaha Vihare in Polonnaruwa has been transformed into a quarantine centre after a person who visited the Vihare was confirmed to have infected the virus. After the discovery of 2 soldiers attached to the Kandakadu army camp testing positive for the virus, their family members residing in Diyaviddagama Dehiyatha Kandiya and Serupitiya have been directed to quarantine centres. According to our correspondent, they had tested positive for COVID-19 upon returning to duty from holiday. Meanwhile, many PCR tests were carried out in both Diyaviddagama and Serupitiya villages.
කොරෝනා පොකුර තරමක් විශාල පොකුරක්.
This cluster is fairly big. We see small clusters across the island consisting of people who visited the inmate at the Valikada prison, their relatives and people who worked at the prison. With the current situation, there is a risk of a community spread of the virus. Also, one cluster is being reported from the Rajangane area in Polonnaruwa. There are a lot of kidney patients in that area. If these patients get infected with COVID-19, it could lead to deadly complications. 2 out of the 11 people who lost their lives due to COVID-19 were kidney patients. Therefore, I request the people who are suffering from non-communicable diseases to stay indoors and to follow health guidelines.
මේ වෛරසයෙන් ආරක්ෂා වීමට කටයුතු කරන්න කියලා.
Meanwhile, the Unawatuna railway station has been temporarily closed. According to the General Manager of Railways, Dilantha Fernando, an official attached to the Unawatuna railway station has been directed to undergo a PCR test after he had come into contact with an infected person. Adding further, he said that the railway station will be closed until the test results of the official are received. This is how residents in Kottaramulla Nathandiya were informed by health authorities yesterday. It was revealed today that a politician in the Anuradhapura district has been quarantined. The information was revealed at a special meeting held to draw plans to curb the spread of COVID-19 in the North Central Province. The meeting was chaired by the Governor of the North Central Province, Mahipala Herath.
The problem started at a funeral and an almsgiving. Only one person at the funeral has tested positive, but the almsgiving had taken place at the army officer's residence. 12 people tested positive from that place. Another person who attended the almsgiving, who lives in front of the Rajangane hospital, tested positive. 3 more people have tested positive from Katukeliava this morning. Also, there are 2 people in Nochiagama. There are people who work at banks here. The election process has been quite problematic. Postal voting has been postponed until the 28th in Rajangane. There is a huge issue pertaining to holding meetings. Even the Director General of Health said that regulations imposed have not been passed as an act in Parliament. That is true, because we cannot take prompt action due to that. This is a big risk for us.
This Sergeant Major comes to the village at dawn on the 3rd. He has entered with the virus, but he tested positive on the 10th. So this person has been out and about for 7 days carrying the virus. Therefore, it is essential to keep in mind that we are at a critical juncture. As an emergency precaution, we have restricted movement to some extent in Rajangane.
The situation at present is much worse than the situation seen to the naked eye. We have discovered 1 cluster from Rajangane. Apart from those 14 patients, we have found 7 more patients from the community who have travelled in various places in Anuradhapura. They have been to various places in the last 14 days. They have attended many functions and political rallies. As you know, a politician was also quarantined. There are a lot of people who went to the funeral and the almsgiving whom we cannot locate. A child of a person who worked at a now closed garment factory in Nochiagama has tested positive. They have not carried out a PCR test on the mother up until today. If she tests positive, everyone who worked in the garment factory has to be tested and quarantined. Then it becomes a big problem. She has also attended the funeral. This is not simple at all.
The Government Medical Officers Association said that the COVID-19 Technical Committee has not met in over 1.5 months.
The most serious issue here is that we continue to speak about the second wave and about the locations where this can take place. We spoke about the risk of reopening schools and airports. We also highlighted the risks of holding political rallies, but the COVID-19 Technical Committee has not met for the last 1.5 months. We then had to write to the Director General of Health Services to convene this committee without idling by. We sent this letter on the 6th, and it was around that time that the situation worsened. After we sent the letter, the Technical Committee had convened last Saturday. We see the failure of the Technical Committee to act as a shortcoming.
This is the opinion of the GMOA on how to control the current situation.
This situation is completely different than the situation in April and May. We traced patients under a situation where their travel had been restricted, but now we have to trace them without those restrictions. There is a massive risk of the virus spreading if we do not identify these patients through proper contact tracing. It is essential to isolate certain areas. We have to decide if we want to contain this within a village, or allow it to spread to the entire district and then contain it, or allow it to to spread across the whole province before we contain it.
ටිකටම බලපාන විදිහට මේක යන්න දෙනවාද ඊට පළාතට බලපාන විදිහට යන්න දෙනවාද කියන තීරණයට තමයි අපි එන්න වෙලා තියෙන්නේ.
Commander of the Sri Lanka Army, Lieutenant General Shavendra Silva, he is heading the National Operations Centre for the Prevention of COVID-19. Newsfirst's Chaturanga Hapuarachi held a conversation with the Commander of the Sri Lanka Army with this regard.
Is there a second wave? Is this what you call a second wave? Where are we in terms of COVID prevention? Let's get to the point straight away.
So, where are we right now? Of course, we have taken total control of the situation at the center. We have tested almost everyone there except for very few numbers. Of 492, actually there are instructors, there are other people who are supporting staff, civilian staff, then plus the inmates who got rehabilitated, they all are there. These rehabilitating inmates are given opportunity to see their relatives or friends or whoever it is, and such 160 numbers have come to see. So they are from the society. So we have identified not only 116, but we also identified the relatives or the family members of them. We all of them have been brought except for very few numbers where we find that their addresses are wrong and few things like logistics issues. We can't rule out the fact that there won't be anyone outside. There's a possibility where we might get one or two from somewhere. So this week is very critical.
You're saying that this current week that we are in, this coming week is very important to us because of the 14-day factor or the quarantine period. What is the situation surrounding the schools? How safe will the children be afterwards?
What we believe here is that honestly, what happened here is that there was a small situation at Rajanganaya where some students were exposed there. With that only, the government of Sri Lanka, honestly, His Excellency the President, Prime Minister, they have decided that the children are important. Not that there's a big threat over here, but still to preempt and to ensure that our children are protected. For that reason only, the government has taken a decision to close all the schools, not only Rajanganaya, but all schools, so that the children will be protected.
We have taken a decision to sort of prevent the repatriation process, to stop foreigners and Sri Lankans who are living overseas to come into the country. Was there an absolute necessity for this decision? What is the rollback, and when are we actually looking at opening up our airports?
Yeah, of course, it is mostly for Sri Lankans who are living abroad. Irrespective whether some abroad would like to comment on those or not, we have been a very successful story. We had a very successful story in Sri Lanka in regard to even handling of those who came from abroad. So we have done that. But as of today, what has happened is that we have not completely put a halt to this. We are trying to stagger this because we were maintaining around 5,500 numbers at any given time quarantining in any of the centers. All these centers are run only by 3 services, Army, Navy and the Air Force. At any given time, we work for a contingency. We always plan for contingencies in a strategy. So this contingency, we have to have 500 to even up to 1,000. In case if something we get from the society, we should have space for them as well. So this is why I think the decision was taken by the government, a timely decision. I think the government took a decision to make sure, that is to make they safe, plus the society is safe.
Postal voting for the 2020 general election commenced earlier today.
Health sector employees, public health inspectors and public health officers were allowed to cast their postal votes today. The Elections Commission said that the postal voting today was conducted successfully. Other state employees will be given an opportunity to vote tomorrow and the day after, while the 16th and the 17th of this month will be reserved for members of security forces. Those who are unable to cast their postal votes on those days will be able to do so on the 20th and 21st of this month. 705,085 individuals have qualified to cast postal votes for the general election this year. Due to the prevailing coronavirus situation, the postal voting scheduled for the Rajanganaya division was postponed. Speaking at a media briefing for government officials in Mannar today, the chairman of the National Elections Commission reiterated that there is no need to postpone the election.
Fear of corona is much lower at a polling station than in any public place in Sri Lanka. The polling station is very safe. It is the safest place. The Commission has no intention of postponing the election for now. Under these circumstances, the election can be held. To hold the elections, we request the people of the country just to be careful. Elections can be held only if this is prevented from spreading everywhere in the country.
Following the meeting in Vaunia, journalists questioned the chairman about holding the election.
Why not? There is no such situation at present. This election in Rajanganaya was not postponed because of the pandemic, but because officials of the Divisional Secretariat were quarantined. Then how can they vote? We will wait 14 days, and if they ask us to wait even longer, we will even go to the camps and hold the vote. Delaying the election is delaying democracy.
The nursing staff of the Kandy National Hospital went on strike for 3 hours today during the time they were given to cast their postal votes. They protested regarding several issues surrounding dues. They have so far not received any allowances given for the government's public holidays in April and May, as well as allowances for additional services.
During the first wave of corona, the nursing staff worked without any concern about their well-being. The government did not provide any facilities that they promised they would. They even came to work in their private vehicles, but the government have not given them at least the minimal allowances they owe for these services. It is against this backdrop that this second wave, or in other words, the extension of this first wave, is taking place. The question now arises whether the nursing staff will continue to be fooled. We state very clearly that if they expect to get our services while continuing media stunts, they will get nothing.
The nursing staff returned to work after about 3 hours.
We now cross over for a short commercial break.
Playing this weekend on Yes 101.
The Weekend Top 30 with Hollywood Hamilton.
What's up? It's Hollywood Hamilton. You know what we do around here. It's the fastest moving countdown in America. Some of the biggest names in the industry in the studio.
Hi, I'm Ariana Grande.
This is Drake.
This is Lady Gaga.
Backstage with us and on the WT30 hotline. I'll catch you this weekend for the Weekend Top 30.
The Weekend Top 30 with Hollywood Hamilton on Yes 101.
Welcome back to the news. Although COVID-19 has resurfaced in the island, politicians or political representatives continue to be preoccupied with the upcoming general election. Chairman of the Sri Lanka Pudujana Perumuna, Professor G.L. Piris, speaking at a media briefing today, said that there is a need to establish a strong government. Several factors helped us control the spread of COVID-19 in the country. The main factor is strong political leadership. The policies of the government were formulated based on the recommendations of specialist doctors. The other factor is proper coordination. We got such good results because of the program that was launched together with politicians, health authorities, security forces and state intelligence services. The people of this country have shown interest in giving the government a strong door instead of a saloon door. We want a strong government in the new parliament. There is a need for the people of this country to have a strong representation in parliament that is reflective of this country's support for the government, especially in the eyes of the international community. Under the current legal framework, the government has no power to remove the current Inspector General of Police. Next is election laws. There is a national need to amend these laws. The numbers of the candidates who are contesting for this election cannot be displayed. The party symbol and the candidate symbol cannot be displayed. If that cannot be done, how can a candidate make known to the public about his candidacy? There is no practical way of doing this. Doing this via print media and electronic media is not practical. This is a process that is against democracy. This is a waste of money. This process is a waste of public funds. We do not need piecemeal solutions to this. It would be a priority for the new parliament to review these laws and bring about fundamental change that suits the modern day requirements.
समस्त क्रमे विश्लेषणයට භාජනය කරලා කාලෝචිත සංශෝධන කිරීම අලුත් පාර්ලිමේන්තුවේ ප්‍රමුඛ කර්තව්‍යයක්.
The Election Commission has developed a set of criteria for political parties on how to conduct this election campaign. This included regulations on the number of attendees, the seating pattern, the collection of their data, and several other stipulations. However, the Commission does not have the powers to impose and implement laws. The Director General of Health has the power to enact such laws. Even though nearly 1 month has elapsed since the beginning of the election campaign, the regulations required for the restrictions of the election campaign have not been gazetted. It has not been made a law. This is a deliberate effort by the political establishment and not a failure of the health authorities. The entire campaign has always been a drama filled with thousands at meetings. The government deliberately avoided publishing this gazette. They reported in a manner that the number of patients recovering from COVID-19 exceeded the number of reported patients. The president has started a campaign saying that candidates should not even use his photograph for the election campaign, but he has started canvassing. I have seen the meetings where the president and the prime minister have attended. The president is maintaining a 1 meter distance, but the supporters are packed together. If the meetings attended by the leader of the country are done in this manner, then the people will be convinced that there is nothing to worry about. This indicates that the virus has been in the center for some time. It is not the Kandakadu quarantine center, but the treatment and rehabilitation centers that these new patients are popping up. Hundreds of patients being reported at a time to suggest that the virus has been at the center for considerable time. This cluster has several special features unseen in the clusters found so far. It is not yet known how the virus got into this center. Some of those who went out from this center have used the public transportation system. It is not only the leaders of our country that must be protected. No matter what power the ruler is working towards achieving, we urge the people to be careful. The quarantine process was not only violated, but the people of the country were persuaded to violate it. It started with the funeral of Thondaman. There are allegations from the Government Medical Officers Association that the statistics submitted are not correct. Also, the medical faculty of the University of Jayawardhanapura is stating with responsibility that COVID-19 positive patients are negative when they go to the Ministry of Health. The Rajapaksa's media mafia always carries its agenda in this country. This virus cannot be used by media to defraud people. This thing about not attending meetings is a fraud. The main responsibility of the government has not been fulfilled. The Minister of Health has not yet gazetted the recommendations of the Election Commissioner and the Election Commission. By engaging in this and without gazetting, they can bend the rules as much as possible. This is a quest to quench their thirst for power, even to hold elections over dead bodies. No valid PCR tests are being held. The medical officers of the said quarantine center have very clearly stated that 3 tests should be done. The government should take full responsibility for the second wave. Even the quarantine centers are not maintained properly as per the proper procedures. We as a responsible opposition are working to prevent the spread of the disease.
Let's now take a look at several views expressed on the political arena regarding holding the general election amidst the COVID-19 pandemic.
2020.
The UNP and the JVP wants to postpone the election. There is no need to do that. Our party has decided to suspend our campaign rallies where people gather for 3 days. Other parties can follow our example.
A few days ago, they said COVID-19 was under control and the trophy was won by Gotabaya Rajapaksa. But what happened? They went to politicize this and now the country is in danger. Since the President and the Prime Minister are scared to face the public, they are not attending any rallies. We will continue our meetings according to health guidelines.
We saw regulations being relaxed during the past few days. When our leader came, there were 500 attendees. We arranged it adhering to social distancing. I don't think there is a need to speak to anyone now. They have already decided to vote for the Pohotu on the 5th.
The health guidelines have not been gazetted as yet. The President and the Prime Minister organized rallies violating these regulations. We believe that the government should take responsibility and prevent the spread of the virus without waiting for the glory of controlling corona at the end.
Gotabaya Rajapaksa used his wisdom and acted in such a manner that only 11 people in the country lost their lives. They are trying to postpone the election by hook or by crook. That is the only hope of Premadasa and Disanayaka.
Now the Rajapaksas who control the spread of COVID-19 virus have faced another issue with the second wave. As citizens, we must stop this second wave. We don't care who takes the credit.
Discussions must be held with all interested parties and a decision must be taken on if the elections would be postponed or not. They are of two minds. They won't even admit that this is the second wave. The party leaders said that this decision should be taken now instead of in 2 weeks.
They should have postponed earlier. Elections cannot be postponed now. We cannot bear this cost. Each person contributes 500 rupees for the election to be held. This election must be held because people cannot bear these costs. The people will be left desolate if they start acting in this manner.
We don't want to talk about holding the election, but if the election commission decides, we will go for it. No leader was able to give 5,000 rupees to the people. We want to establish a strong government in parliament to give concessions to the people.
This could have been stopped before campaign rallies were suspended. The people of this country are in danger today because of their lies and their greed for a 2/3 majority. Leave the politics aside and work to safeguard the people of this country.
These small groups in the opposition that have broken off are trying to incite fear in the country. This situation is controlled under the leadership of Gotabaya Rajapaksa and he will continue to implement it in the future.
පාලනය කරේ ගෝඨාභය රාජපක්ෂ මැතිතුමාගේ නායකත්වයෙන් අන්න ඉදිරියේදීත් ඒ ක්‍රියාත්මක කරන්නෙත් එතුමා කියන එක අපි කියනවා.
Because of their greed for power, corona patients are now detected in the country again. The government must be held responsible for the spread of this virus. Before the election, we asked for the election not to be held. They held the election now because they would have lost it if it was held after the virus was under control.
2020.
The final rites of Amit Karunaratne, who was shot dead by officers attached to the Angulana police, were observed today.
Amit Karunaratne, a resident of the 7th lane in Dunava Moratua, was shot dead in Dunava last Saturday. His final rites were observed at the Angulana Public Cemetery. Security around the Angulana police station was beefed up today.
The Monetary Board of the Central Bank of Sri Lanka has decided to suspend business of ETI Finance Limited and Swarnamahal Financial Services PLC.
The decision to suspend the business of these companies was taken in terms of Section 31 of the Finance Business Act number 42 of 2011 with effect from 13th July 2020. Issuing a communique, the central bank said ETIF and SFSP have become insolvent due to various irregularities taking place since 2011. It added that due to the inability of the board of directors and senior management of the respective companies to satisfactorily address these deficiencies, the Monetary Board on the 2nd of January 2018 issued directions restricting the affairs of the companies and the powers of the board of directors of the two companies, and a panel of management was also appointed by the Monetary Board to oversee the affairs of both companies. The CBSL added that even though the Monetary Board directed the board of directors of both companies to find suitable investors to revive the companies, no viable proposal materialized. Due to the inability to revive the companies successfully, the financial situation of both companies continued to deteriorate. The CBSL pointed out that as a result, both ETIF and SFSP are currently not in a position to repay the deposits by themselves, irrespective of such deposits being matured. The communique added that the CBSL will inform further action with respect to ETIF and SFSP in due course. A group of ETI depositors visited the ETI head office located in Boralla. Various false campaigns were carried out to deceive the depositors. They said that there are investors and that these institutions will continue to operate. We see that there is no practical program that we can accept. We are of the opinion that these institutions can continue to operate. There are economic specialists at the central bank. The views of these specialists should be obtained and these institutions should be resurrected.
Do you remember? Despite what was said today, what happened to ETI and Swarna Mahal Financial Services? During the reign of the previous government in March 2018, they announced that there was an investor for the ETI group. They said that 45% of the group's shares will be purchased by an investor for $75 million. The purported investor company Blue Summit Capital was registered in Singapore only a few months before March 2018. This investor later abandoned the loss-making ETI Group and Swarna Mahal Finance Limited. In the end, the investor who acquired the profit-making operations of the companies transferred the shares of Blue Summit Capital to another company. Now, there is ambiguity as to if the entire investment even came into the country. A few politicians were linked to this series of events that resulted in massive losses to the depositors of these financial institutions due to actions taken in the guise of international investments. Shouldn't the public reject politicians who ransack the people of their hard-earned money?
Some claim the burning problems of the general public are only noticed by political representatives during the election season. But in contrast, locals in Pannala claim that even an upcoming election has not prompted any official to visit their village.
The Devalasala Bridge in Pannala is located on the boundaries of the Kurunegala district and Puttalam district. Due to its location, locals claim that this bridge is the shortcut to several nearby areas. However, at present, locals who use this bridge to reach the other end fear for their lives. Why does the bridge earn such a name? Because it has never been renovated for the past 70 years. Fed up with years and years of complaining and authorities turning a blind eye to all of their pleading, these villagers decided to renovate this bridge in whatever possible way. But even after all of their hard work, the bridge still remains dilapidated.
පාරට වතුර දාලා පාලම කැල්ල මේක දැන් හුඟක් කල් ඉඳන් හදලා දෙන්නේ නැහනේ ඡන්ද ගන්න නම් කට්ටිය කවුරුත් එනවා මේ පාරෙන් කොච්චර අපි එහාට මෙහාට යන්න ඕනද
මේක හදලා දෙන්න කිසිම කෙනෙක් එන්නේ නැහැ මේක බලනවා යනවා හැමදාම බලනවා විතරයි මේක කරන්න කෙනෙක් නැහැ
පාලම මැඩලා දැන් අවදානමත් දැන් කොයි හරි මෙතනදී මේ මරණයක් සිද්ධ වෙන එක තමයි වෙන්නේ ඉතින් ඒක තමයි බලධාරීන්ට හැරෙන්නේ නැති එකයි මෙතන ප්‍රශ්නේ තියෙන්නේ.
These villagers urge the authorities to renovate this bridge.
A special team representing the Presidential Commission of Inquiry appointed to investigate the 21st April attack visited Sainda Marudu over the weekend.
Secretary of the Presidential Commission of Inquiry, B.P. Herat, said the observation tour was to establish the evidence recorded from multiple witnesses. He said a team of detectives investigated several sites linked to the terror events. More than 1,000 people provided statements to the Presidential Commission of Inquiry investigating the April 21st attacks, and evidence was recorded from 210 people. Meanwhile, the Chief Inspector of Police at the Ampara Police head office was arrested by the Colombo Crimes Division. Police media spokesperson SSP Jalya Senaratne said that he was arrested on suspicion of concealing evidence regarding an explosion that occurred in Saindamarudu in 2019. The suspect is being detained and questioned under the provision of the Prevention of Terrorism Act.
The government of Japan has agreed to provide assistance of 340 million rupees for drug eradication in Sri Lanka.
A statement issued by the Ministry of Finance, Economic and Policy Development states that the prevalence of drug-related activities in Sri Lanka has increased rapidly in recent times. The Ministry of Defence said that the Sri Lanka police and security forces have pointed out the need for modern technological equipment to identify the drug dealers and drug addicts to control the situation.
While on one hand, the discussion on the spread of COVID-19 rages on, the political stage is also heating up at the cusp of the general election. However, people's issues are also aplenty. In the midst of all this, there is a difference in opinion amongst members of the same party.
I saw yesterday that some in our camp say that some of our candidates were sent as spies. I saw some candidates say that they told Mahinda Rajapaksa before leaving. I tell you, no matter what anyone says, you should not use this election to send spies or anyone's henchmen to parliament. If someone says no, we went because we were told, or that they went as part of a contract, remember, parliament is not a place for spies or contractors. We ask you not to leave space for contractors or brokers who are accepting others' contracts.
There are coconuts in the garden. It is okay to pick the coconuts. We need to tell them as they come into our village. Also, leaders in this district are coming here and having meetings without both Mahinda Yapa and myself. It is sad. Those who have not put a grain of effort into this seat come to this seat and shout, there is no problem. This is not a problem. There are 3 preferential votes in this. One has to work to take one away. They say don't give it to this one, don't give it to that one. Wherever I am, I have taken steps to protect the Rajapaksas. I have never been there to harm the Rajapaksas. Basil Rajapaksa knows this well, what was done and what I did.
When the last local government election was held in the year 2018, those who left Mahinda Rajapaksa for portfolios, ministries and positions, even they came back to Mahinda Rajapaksa. Those are the people on this stage today. Many people today do not even remember this. Today, those who removed my ministry and the person who was given that portfolio are on our list. Mahinda Rajapaksa was present at all our meetings. He will be attending my meeting too. He will also be attending the meeting of the man who lost his ministerial portfolio, as well as the man who was subsequently appointed to that ministry. We are people who gave up our ministries for Mahinda Rajapaksa. If we were in favour of positions, we would have gone to the Yahapalana camp. The people who took advantage of Mahinda Rajapaksa were the first people to abandon him.
Those who joined me for this election for 3 years and defeated me in the midst of various obstacles, they will get the 6 seats in the Matra district and the 2/3 majority government. I am confident that we will be able to get about half of the 40,000 votes that we need from Deniyaya. Today all of you are here without considering your party or allegiance to contribute 6 seats and create a 2/3 majority.
While the Dalla Salahapirma camp was on one side, the Nipuna Ranawaka camp was on the other side. Lakshman Yapa is setting up another camp. The uncle is coming, the aunt is coming, the grandfather is coming, all in support of Nipuna. Dalla Salahapirma, Kanchana Wijayasekara and Veera Sumana Veerasinghe are sitting in one camp today while everyone is trying to help Nipuna Ranawaka win. We tell Dalla Salahapirma that if he has a backbone, Miss Salahapirma, get up on one stage and do so with all 10 of your other candidates. That is the reality. That's the truth. As a result, Matara politics has swung in our favour.
Former President Maithripala Sirisena spoke about politics in Polonnaruwa. People who are against me are asking people to vote for others who are against me. What have these people done to this district? People in these villages are asking other people not to vote for a person from their own village. The people in these villages must understand the concepts of gratitude and humanity and the value of their own. Although these people say various things, like that person, the small fair man I brought to the election, I was the one who brought him from the UNP and took him to Mahinda Rajapaksa. No matter what they say, you know, in a marathon there are about 50 participants. The one who wins the marathon wins by a few laps. Just like that, after the election you will see how the talented candidate, the candidate from the village, will record a resounding victory.
Marathon එකෙන් ගැහුවා වගේ ගහනවා වාර්තාගත ගැහිල්ලක් ගහනවා ආයි ගහන්නේ එසේ මෙසේ ගැහිල්ලක් නෙවෙයි.
Candidate of the Langi Tamil Arasu Party or ITAK, MS Mandiran, spoke regarding the future course of action of his party while attending a public meeting in Jaffna.
The government would require the seats we obtain at this election in parliament to reach a 2/3 majority. In the past, I mentioned that we would discuss how we would support them to fulfill that. We received a positive response from the government after that statement was made. We claimed if our political ambitions and aspirations can be met, we would consider supporting the government to obtain a 2/3 majority. We should have bargaining power on which ministerial portfolios we would receive, how many ministries would be assigned, and the powers of those ministries and other related factors.
என்ன மாதிரியான அதிகாரங்கள் என்பதை பேரம் பேசுவதற்கு எங்களுக்கு பலம் இருக்க வேண்டும்.
Up next is the big fight.
The big fight.
Why did he leave if I was the easiest person to beat? I challenged Vijit Vijayamuni Soisa to come and contest against me at the local government election. The person who cannot even win the electorate his house is located at is now challenging me. I think I am also capable when someone who is at the same age of my father is challenging me. I told former President Maithripala Sirisena that he is not a person that walks the talk.
අර ආස්පුරු වගේ තමයි සූංගල යනවා සද්ද නැට්ටු කරපත් වෙලා ඉවර වෙනවා. ඔච්චර තමයි කරන්න පුළුවන්.
මට එක රාජපක්ෂ කෙනෙක් පරද්ද
I can beat one Rajapaksa even by contesting from the SLPP or the UNP. He is just a gingerbread man. I heard today that he has posted on Facebook that he will become the future president of our country. They think the country is owned by them.
බුදලේ කියලා මේ රට මුන්ට වැහි නැති හෙන පහත් වෙන්න ඕනේ. ඇත්ත කතා දේවාලේ
I will not criticize him further. I challenge media institutions to telecast what I just said on TV. They have to be attacked in groups rather than attacking them individually. To defeat them, the Rajapaksa regime, we have to come to Gampaha. Gampaha has the most number of people who are eligible to defeat them. By taking that responsibility only, I came to the Gampaha district. Ranjit Madhuma Bandara asked me even to take over the leadership.
Bandara කිව්වද නායකකම බාර ගන්න කියලා.
The big fight.
Former mayor of Kaduwela, G.H. Buddhadasa, has pledged his support to the Samagi Jana Balawegaya in this election. I did not leave the party. It is because there was no party that today I am defeated and come before you just as Buddhadasa. Remember, today the municipal council has wasted the money I saved. Today the employees have been made unable to pay their salaries. Remember, by today the municipal council has destroyed the money I saved. There is a situation that they can't even afford to pay the salaries. I tell you that there are a few poor councillors in the Kaduwela Municipal Council who even played out of the eggs, red onions and potatoes. I tell you today that 15% of people are contractors. Remember, there is an acre and a half of land. I got this document yesterday and I will send it to the Bribery Commission tomorrow or the day after tomorrow. Not only that, today my friend Vimal Veeravansa is finished. Today he has no supporters. Vimal Veeravansa had a flower bud party meeting at the Buddhadasa Stadium the other day. No other candidate was allowed to come apart from himself. Now as the Pradeshi Sabha members are attacking Vimal Veeravansa, his juniors are silently watching.
Another campaign meeting of the Samagi Jana Balawegaya was held in Aturugiriya yesterday. The meeting was presided over by the leader of the SJB, Sajith Premadasa.
කොරෝනා දෙවෙනි රැල්ල නිර්මාණය වන්නට පරිසරය සකස් කළා.
who created an environment conducive for a second wave of COVID-19 infections to arise. When the government was taking ad hoc decisions, we went to the Election Commission, expressed our opposition, saying this is not the time to conduct an election. However, we got to know that if the National Election Commission had not announced a fresh date for the election, the government would have held it on a date they wished. That is why the National Election Commission hurriedly announced the election for the 5th of August. No entity, including the National Election Commission, has a moral right to impose various terms. When such terms are imposed, it is we who are in the opposition that is affected the most. Therefore, please do not set boundaries of limits for campaigns. But the government and the National Election Commission have another option, that is to postpone the election considering the current situation. Once that is done, we can discuss the details of limitations on campaign meetings and so on. We do not agree with laws which are put forth just so they can hamper the opposition's progress. To satisfy the people, they have postponed their meetings. This is not an adventurous task, but mere pretense. They are in such a hurry to conduct the election. That is because the situation in the country is worsening each passing day. That is the bitter truth. We want a clean parliament. We want a clean government. Think before you vote.
Reverend Father Anton Ranjit has been appointed as an auxiliary bishop of the Catholic Church for the Archdiocese of Colombo.
The appointment has been done by His Holiness Pope Francis, and the announcement was made by the Catholic Church today. Reverend Father Anton Ranjit held several positions at Catholic schools and was the rector of St. Sebastian's College, Moratuwa, when he received this new appointment. He was also the rector of St. Joseph's College, Colombo 10 and the vice rector of St. Peter's College, Colombo 4.
And that's a wrap of Primetime News on Election First. However, we leave you tonight with the Nagitimu Sri Lanka song sung by the students of the Marapula Mahavidyalaya in Veyangura. For the Newsfirst team, I'm Jamal Ratnayaka along with our sign language interpreter Brian De Cruz. Take care, stay safe and good night.